Celtic left it late, but they got the job done at Rugby Park, and maybe, just maybe, this was the turning point everyone's been waiting for. In a match that looked like it was heading straight for another frustrating afternoon, debutant Cleiti stepped up under pressure and delivered a huge goal in the dying minutes. A penalty, yes, but not just any penalty. It was a moment loaded with meaning. A moment that could change the whole dynamic around this Celtic side that's been, let's face it, underwhelming for weeks. The first half was rough. It felt like watching the same movie again, slow, toothless, lacking any real threat going forward. Celtic looked disjointed, the midfield three once again struggling to find rhythm or creativity. McGregor, Negrin, and Hatate just aren't clicking right now. It's not about effort. You can see they care, but there's something missing. No spark, no drive. And the tempo? Way too slow. But through all that, one player lit things up, Sebastian Tanky. From the very first whistle, he looked like he belonged. He was direct, hungry, and fearless, driving at defenders, trying to beat his man, forcing mistakes. It was the kind of debut that makes fans sit up and think, okay, we've got something here. Now, let's not go overboard. It's early days. But Tanky looked like a player Celtic have badly needed. Someone willing to make things happen, take on defenders, stretch the game. And what stood out wasn't just his movement or flair, it was the confidence. He didn't hide. On a tough pitch, in an even tougher game, he was the one looking to make something happen. He had the Kelly right back on toast at times, and his pace caused real problems. If he can build on that, if he can find that end product consistently, Celtic might have a real player on their hands. On the other side, it was a very different story. Bali is clearly struggling. He's had a difficult start, thrown into big matches early, and so far, it hasn't really clicked for him. He doesn't look comfortable, he's not taking players on, and fans are understandably frustrated. But before we write him off, let's take a breath. He's young, he's adapting, and there's clearly talent there. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come with such good reviews from his former club. Maybe he needs a run of games in a consistent position. Maybe he needs time to gel with his teammates. Whatever it is, he needs patience, not pressure. Now, speaking of the setup behind the wingers, that's another piece of the puzzle. Kobe Donovan made his first real impression at right back, and while he had moments of inexperience, he also showed flashes of promise. He's raw, sure, but he's aggressive, eager, and doesn't shy away from the responsibility. You could see him trying to support the attack, even when the execution wasn't perfect. Sarachi on the left, meanwhile, had a mixed game. Some praised him, others weren't convinced. What you can't argue with, though, is the fact that he kept showing for the ball, kept trying to be involved. He got the assist for Maeda's goal and was constantly part of the play. Is he the finished article? No, but he's certainly not hiding either. And that brings us to the midfield, the core of the team, the area where everything begins or breaks down. Celtic's current trio isn't working. Hatate looks miles off his best. Negrin, for all the early hype, hasn't shown that cutting edge that Celtics so desperately need. He gets into decent positions, sure, but that killer ball, that moment of magic, it's not coming. And McGregor, the heartbeat of this team for so long, looks absolutely knackered. He's trying to do everything. Cover ground, dictate play, lead by example. But he's not a machine. And the problem is, without a functioning midfield, the whole system stutters. There's no balance, no creativity, no bite. And with games coming thick and fast, Rodgers needs to find a solution, fast. Maybe it's time to bring in Bernardo. Maybe Ari Engels needs another chance, despite not featuring recently. Something's got to give. Because right now, this midfield can't control games, can't dictate tempo, and certainly can't break down packed defenses. Still, for all that, Celtic walked away from Rugby Park with 3 massive points. And a huge part of that was down to one player stepping up when it mattered most, Cleiti. Let's be honest, not many were convinced when he signed. And his early showings didn't exactly inspire confidence. But when the moment came, with the weight of expectation on his shoulders, he grabbed the ball, ignored the noise, and slotted it home with the kind of composure you just can't teach. That penalty could be the spark he needed. Because make no mistake, if he had missed that, the headlines would have written themselves. Flop striker bottles it. Celtic waste money again. But he didn't. He scored. He celebrated like a man who'd just remembered why he loves this game. And for the fans, the ones desperate for a new hero up top, it was a reminder that maybe, just maybe, this guy could be it. There's something about redemption arcs that football fans love. Players arriving with baggage, low confidence, questions over their ability, and then they rise. It's early days, of course, but seeing Cleiti take that penalty, seeing him wave off more established players and say, "No, I've got this," that's a statement. It shows guts, and it shows belief. Now he needs to build on that. Start delivering performances to match that moment. Because if he does, this could be the start of something really special. And while we're at it, how about the unity among the fans? Sure, it wasn't perfect. Some chose to protest by missing the first 12 minutes. Others went in from kickoff. But the point was made. And crucially, when the team needed support at the end, everyone was there. The roar after that winning goal, that's what Celtic's about. That joy, that release, that's why you put up with the bad days. That's why you protest. Because you care. And when the club gets things right, or at least shows some fight, the support is there in full voice. Now the big question is, can Celtic build on this? The fixtures ahead are tricky but winnable. There's a real chance to gather momentum, to get players firing, and to put the early season frustrations in the rearview mirror. But it's going to take more than moments. It's going to take performances. Because the truth is, the problems haven't disappeared. The midfield still needs reshaping. The defense still has question marks. And the new signings still need time to settle. But if moments matter, and in football, they always do, then this could be a big one. A new winger lighting it up on debut. A striker proving he's got ice in his veins. A young right-back showing he belongs. These are the kinds of building blocks that can turn a season around. Celtic fans have seen it before, and they'll be hoping they're seeing it again. What makes this all the more fascinating is how Celtic continue to feel like a team caught between two identities. On one side, you've got Brendan Rodgers trying to steady the ship, preaching patience, talking about long-term plans, and building cohesion. On the other, you've got a fan base that's grown tired of waiting, desperate for intensity, invention, and a brand of football that feels alive again. The pressure's been building, no question, and this late win doesn't erase any of that. But it does release the valve just a little bit. Gives everyone something to breathe on, to cling to, as the bigger picture starts to take shape. Rodgers himself looked more animated on the touchline than he has in weeks. Maybe he felt what this moment meant. Maybe he knew that if Celtic dropped more points here, the conversation would get even more toxic. Instead, he gets to point to a dramatic away win, a goal from a new signing, and a moment of clutch quality from a player that needed a lift. And yet, he also knows the job is far from done. Because anyone who watched that first half, who's seen this team in recent weeks, knows how far away they still are from top form. Look, it's never easy to rebuild on the fly. Celtic lost key figures, brought in a bunch of new faces, and have been juggling league and European expectations with a squad that still looks incomplete. But that's where leadership counts, and right now, McGregor's carrying more than he should. This isn't a criticism of him, more a sign of the imbalance. When your captain looks spent after an hour and there's no one alongside him pulling their weight creatively, it's not a system, it's a strain. That midfield continues to be a problem area, and it's not down to a lack of options. It's the combinations that aren't working. Negrin might have a future here, but he's not a box-to-box player, and certainly not the type who's going to grab a match by the scruff and drive it forward. Hatate, once electric in transitions and known for threading those inch-perfect passes, looks like a shadow of the player he was. Whether it's physical, mental, or tactical, he needs something to click back into gear, fast. And that's where the calls for someone like Ari Engels come in. Look, it hasn't worked yet. Not the way people hoped when he signed. But he offers something different. Athleticism, composure, a bit of grit. If Rodgers is serious about balancing the engine room, Engels has to come into the picture again. Even Luke McCarron, with his rawness and willingness to drive forward, brings a different kind of energy. Right now, Celtic are crying out for that. Because playing safe, square balls across midfield against well-organized low blocks isn't going to get you results. Not consistently, anyway. And you know what else isn't going to work? Pretending the issues don't exist just because a late penalty went in. The fans know better. They've seen enough false dawns to spot one from a mile off. So when they celebrated at full time, it wasn't because they think Celtic are back. It was because, for the first time in a while, it felt like something to believe in. That spark of hope. That possibility that things might just start moving in the right direction. The The protest before the match was another sign of that. Not division, but frustration. These aren't fans trying to tear the club down. They're trying to pull it back up. And whether you agree with walking in late or not, there was a clear message. The standards have dropped, and people are done staying quiet about it. But when the game kicked off and that final whistle blew, the support was there. Loud, united, emotional. That's what makes Celtic different. You can be angry, you can protest, but when the badge is on the line, you're there. That mix of accountability and loyalty, that's powerful. Looking at the players who made the difference, it wasn't the usual names. That says a lot. It wasn't Hatate or McGregor or Carter Vickers carrying the load. It was Tanky. It was Cleiti. It was Kobe Donovan stepping in and showing flashes of what the future might look like. And that's encouraging. Because if this team is going to push forward, it's going to need fresh legs, fresh ideas, and players who aren't scared to make a mistake, because they're still hungry enough to take risks. Donovan, in particular, deserves some praise. No, he wasn't flawless. But he didn't look out of place either. And for a young academy player thrown into a high-pressure role, that's impressive. He showed composure, determination, and a willingness to overlap and get involved. It's that kind of courage that makes you think there might just be a pathway here again for the next generation. Celtic haven't produced enough homegrown regulars in recent years, and while it's early days for Donovan, this was a strong start. The front three still need sorting. With Maeda on the scoresheet and working his socks off as always, there's no doubt he's a valuable asset. But he can't do it all on his own. And until the midfield starts feeding the front line with more purpose, more precision, those runs will keep going to waste. Cleiti, despite only being on the pitch for a short spell, made more impact than some have managed in 90. His penalty might define his time at Celtic, or it might just be a footnote. That's up to him. But moments like that don't come from nowhere. They come from players willing to shoulder the pressure. The challenge now is consistency. Can this team string together 2, 3, for solid performances in a row? Can they keep grinding out wins while also rediscovering that attacking identity that made them so dangerous not long ago? There's enough talent. But without rhythm, without conviction in the final third, it's all just potential. And that doesn't win you leagues or trophies. One positive that came through in this match, despite all the struggles, was belief. Not belief that everything's perfect, but belief that this team still has fight. That the dressing room isn't lost. That even when they play poorly, they can still pull a result out of the fire. That counts for something. It's the difference between surviving a slump and spiraling into crisis. Now the schedule doesn't ease up. A trip to face Thistle, followed by a tough European night against Belgrade, and then Hibs and Motherwell in quick succession. It's a run that could define the next phase of the season. Celtic need to take advantage of the home fixtures. They need to show a different level, not just snatching wins, but dominating again. Because while a result like this keeps the Wolves from the door, it won't silence them for long. Rodgers has spoken about how now, with the transfer window closed, the focus can finally shift fully to football. Fair enough. But that puts even more pressure on the results and performances from here. Fans won't accept more passive displays. They want to see the plan. They want to see intensity. They want to feel like Celtic are building something again. And if that starts with players like Tanky and Cleiti grabbing their moments, then all the better. The old guard isn't getting it done right now. The new faces have a real opportunity to seize their places, not just in the squad, but in the hearts of the support. Because at this club, it's not just about talent. It's about timing. Deliver in the big moments, and the fans will carry you. Hide from them, and it's a long road back. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. In what could be the transfer rumor that shakes Scottish football to its core, whispers around Glasgow suggest that LUKA Modric, the Croatian midfield maestro whose elegance and vision have graced the world's biggest stages, might be heading to Celtic. Sources close to the club have hinted at ongoing talks, though no official announcement has yet been made. If true, this would be nothing short of a seismic shift in the Scottish Premiership, a league often praised for its passion, but rarely associated with signings of Modric's caliber. Fans at Celtic Park have taken to social media in a frenzy, speculating on what it could mean for the Hoops. At 38, Modric's career might appear to be in its twilight. but those who've seen him orchestrate Real Madrid's midfield and Champions League triumphs know better. A player of his experience and football intelligence could not only strengthen Celtic's midfield, but also elevate the entire squad, potentially inspiring a new generation of Scottish talents. The murmurs suggest that the deal could hinge on a short-term contract, a final dance for the Croatian wizard before he finally hangs up his boots. Meanwhile, rivals across Glasgow are reportedly keeping a nervous eye on developments. Rangers supporters, in particular, are said to be quietly bracing for the impact of a player who has consistently dictated the tempo at the very pinnacle of European football. The prospect of Modric navigating the Celtic midfield, linking play with surgical precision, and delivering moments of genius on a weekly basis is tantalizing, to say the least. While no figure has been officially reported, insiders claim discussions are intense and serious, hinting that this is more than idle chatter. As the summer transfer window stretches on, the Celtic faithful can scarcely contain their excitement. Even the mere possibility of seeing Modric in green and white is enough to send ripples through Scottish football, with pundits already imagining how Brendan Rodgers, or whichever manager takes the helm, might build a team around such a unique talent. For now, it remains a tantalizing rumor, the kind that sparks debate in pubs, fills timelines, and fuels endless speculation. But if it comes to pass, the signing of Luka Modric would not just be a statement. It would be a bold, audacious moment that could redefine the landscape of Scottish football. Hello, fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.